Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're a longtime viewer, you already know I'm a huge fan of Insomniac Games. But whether you're a diehard PlayStation loyalist or just a casual gamer, chances are you've played or at least heard about their incredible Marvel titles. Marvel's Spider-Man and its sequel, Spider-Man 2, have become two of the most celebrated superhero games of all time, and for very good reason. The web-slinging mechanics are fluid and satisfying, the combat system is tight, and the stories are emotionally grounded in a way that hits pretty hard. They aren't just superhero games, they're narrative-driven experiences that remind us what makes characters like Peter Parker and Miles Morales so universally beloved. So when Insomniac announced that they were working on a Wolverine game, a grittier, more brutal take on the Marvel icon, people lost their minds, including myself. I mean, let's be real, Wolverine is one of the most complex, layered characters in the Marvel universe. The potential for deep emotional storytelling paired with intense combat mechanics had fans dreaming about what this game could become. But here's the thing, it's been nearly 2 years since that teaser dropped, and since then we've gotten nothing. No gameplay trailers, no developer updates, no screenshots, not even a tweet really. And to make things worse, there's been a similar silence around Spider-Man 2, specifically the lack of any post-launch DLC, which is a stark contrast to the roadmap we got with the original game Spider-Man 2018. Now, I don't really want to jump to conclusions or ring the alarm bell for no reason, but something feels off. For a studio known for being communicative, transparent, and consistent with content delivery, this kind of radio silence is pretty unusual. And as we've come to learn, there's a very real reason behind this. In late 2023, Insomniac suffered one of the most catastrophic data breaches we've ever seen in gaming history. And it wasn't just some internal memos or harmless assets that leaked. We're talking full development timelines, budget details, project names, employees' personal information, and yes, early alpha footage of Wolverine. This breach didn't just affect fans, it was a massive hit to the developers themselves. Morale, momentum, and security were all shaken at their core. So today we're diving deep into what really happened behind the scenes. Why haven't we seen Wolverine gameplay yet? What's the status of the Spider-Man 2 DLC? And is Insomniac still on track to deliver on the ambitious roadmap we saw before this breach? We're going to explore the impact of that infamous Rhysida ransomware attack, how leaked internal documents reveal a much larger pipeline of Marvel games than we ever expected, and what this all means for the future of not just Insomniac, but PlayStation's entire first-party lineup. So grab a drink, a snack, get comfy, and let's break this down together because I think the full story is far more complicated and concerning than most people realize. To really understand why fans are so anxious about the silence surrounding Wolverine, we need to rewind the clock a bit, back to when Insomniac Games first rose to prominence within the PlayStation family. This is a studio with serious pedigree. You might know them from Ratchet & Clank, a beloved series that's been around since the PlayStation 2 era, or maybe from the cult classic Resistance series during the PS3 years. But their true breakout moment, the one that redefined the studio and placed them among Sony's most valuable developers, was Marvel's Spider-Man 2018. It was just a perfect storm, a character everyone loves, open world design that nailed the feeling of web swinging, and writing that humanized Peter Parker in a way no game had before. It wasn't just a good superhero game, it was a Game of the Year contender. It sold over 13 million copies in just over a year, becoming the best-selling superhero game of all time. For Sony, it was a slam dunk, and it cemented the value of their investment in Insomniac. Fast forward to 2020, and Insomniac does it again with Spider-Man Miles Morales, which launched alongside the PlayStation 5. Even though it was a shorter game, it proved that the studio could deliver high-quality content on a tight turnaround while transitioning to a brand new console. Then came Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart in 2021, a technical showcase for what the PS5 could do. The loading times, the particle effects, the dimensional rift mechanics, everything screamed next-gen. So, by the time Spider-Man 2 was officially revealed in 2021 and Wolverine was teased in that same PlayStation showcase, fans had all the confidence in the world. Insomniac wasn't just doing well, they were carrying Sony's first-party output. While studios like Naughty Dog and Sucker Punch went quiet, and while delays hit games like The Last of Us Factions, Pragmata, and Stellar Blade, Insomniac remained the one studio that could consistently deliver polished, profitable, and critically acclaimed games. This is why the announcement of Wolverine was so exciting. It wasn't just about Logan, it was about seeing what Insomniac could do with a darker tone, tighter level design, and a character with a very different power set from Spider-Man. Fans imagined bone-crushing melee combat, mature storytelling, and a grounded cinematic tone closer to something like The Last of Us or Logan the film. The expectations weren't just high, they were through the roof, and that's exactly what makes the silence over the last year and a half feel so strange. With a track record like Insomniac's, most people assumed we'd get gameplay footage in 2023 or at the very least a development update. Instead, the only thing that's come out has been unofficial, and that's where things start to get messy. See, the truth is, the delay in communication isn't because the game isn't happening. It's because the game, along with much more, was leaked in one of the most devastating hacks in gaming history. And what was revealed paints a much more complicated picture of what's happening behind the scenes. So now we get to the part that changed everything, the Rhysida ransomware attack on Insomniac Games, which went public in December of 2023. If you missed this story or just saw the headlines, let me break it down clearly. This wasn't just your average data breach, this was one of the most intrusive and damaging cybersecurity attacks in video game history. Rhysida, a cybercriminal ransomware group, reportedly gained access to over 1.67 terabytes of sensitive internal data from Insomniac. This included employee passports, private HR files, NDAs, full internal development roadmaps, business contracts, and most notably for the public, early gameplay footage and concept builds for Marvel's Wolverine. This leak wasn't something Insomniac planned for at all, and that's important to keep in mind. It wasn't some PR stunt or teaser, this was a forced information dump of unfinished alpha stage content, and it spread like wildfire across forums, torrent sites, and even social media. Think about how devastating that must be for the dev team. Imagine spending years working on a passion project, crafting something meant to be revealed to fans with care, and then it's just dumped out online in the rawest, most unpolished state. It's not just demoralizing, it's creatively violating. But let's talk about what was actually revealed in the leak, because it was a lot more than just Wolverine. According to a December 2023 report by Polygon and confirmed by various outlets, Rhysida released detailed internal documents showing Insomniac's entire long-term Marvel pipeline. Here's what was uncovered. Wolverine was originally targeted for a fall 2024 release, which we're past that now. Spider-Man 3 was listed as an active project for 2028. 2 X-Men games were also in planning stages with codenames like Project Rook and Project Grey. A Venom standalone game was also mentioned, and it was aimed for 2025-2026. Internal budgets, team assignments, and performance targets for each game were included as well. This wasn't just a breach of one title, it was the exposure of Sony's entire strategy for its Marvel games portfolio, centered around Insomniac, and the trust that existed between the dev team and Sony, between Insomniac and fans, all of that was thrown into chaos. The studio released a heartfelt statement shortly after the breach saying, quote, "This experience has been extremely distressing for us. We are heartbroken. Like many of you, we're extremely passionate about the work we do. However, the leaked materials are not representative of the final vision of the game." And that last part, not representative, really matters, because while people did get access to early footage, what they saw was nowhere near final. Think placeholder animations, UI that wasn't finished, barely rigged character models, and incomplete environments. To the average viewer, it might have looked underwhelming or even bad, and that's not fair to the process. Wolverine, like any major game, goes through years of iteration. What was shown in the leak wasn't gameplay intended for consumers. It was more like an internal build used for milestone evaluations or engine testing. So when that content went public, it created confusion, disappointment, and worst of all, unfair expectations. But the damage didn't stop at perception. Sources close to the studio say the timeline for Wolverine has, been reevaluated. Obviously, fall 2024, that window didn't work out. Some are speculating a 2025 release. I think that's very unlikely. I think 2026 is fairly likely, but depending on how much the leak disrupted the dev cycles, who knows? On top of that, the breach likely triggered legal investigations, insurance claims, security audits, and staff restructuring. These are the kinds of things that destroy momentum, and when a studio like Insomniac is expected to deliver blockbuster content every 2 years, losing that rhythm can have huge ripple effects. So when people ask, why haven't we seen Wolverine or where's the Spider-Man 2 DLC, this is a big part of the answer. Insomniac didn't go quiet because they had nothing to show. They went quiet because they were forced into recovery mode after a digital heist of their most important secrets. And so that brings us to an even bigger question. What does this mean for the future of Wolverine? Will it still come out in time? Will it still be the game we hope for? And does Insomniac have the resources and the morale to keep up the pace they were known for? We're going to tackle that next. So we've broken down the devastating Rhysida breach and chaos it's caused internally at Insomniac. Let's get to the big question on everyone's mind. Is Marvel's Wolverine still happening? And if so, when? What can we reasonably expect moving forward, and how confident should fans actually be? Let's start with the most direct answer. Yes, Marvel's Wolverine is still in active development, despite the breach, despite the disruption, and despite the silence. Multiple sources, including the Gamer and PlayStation Lifestyle, have confirmed that the game has not been cancelled, paused, or rebooted. That's very important because when leaks like this happen, there's always fear that the entire project could have been scrapped or delayed indefinitely. That doesn't appear to be the case here, though. What has changed, however, is the release window and possibly the scope of the project entirely. Prior to the leak, insiders believed the game was targeting a fall 2024 release window, which would have aligned with Insomniac's rapid-fire development cycle. That timeline made sense if Wolverine had started development in late 2020 or early 2021, shortly after Miles Morales wrapped up and as Spider-Man 2 was ramping up. But here's the catch. The leaked internal schedule may have been more of an ideal roadmap, not a guaranteed date. Think of it like a draft, the kind of pitch you show Sony execs to get budget approval, not a locked-in marketing plan. And now that the public has seen that document specifically, there's pressure from fans to hit that timeline, but no official update is confirming it's still viable. In fact, a 2025 June update from PlayStation Lifestyle acknowledged the Wolverine is still listed as upcoming on Sony's internal distribution trackers, but with no specified release year. That's a big change from earlier confidence in a 2024 date, and the lack of clarity is what's fueling speculation. So let's just be realistic here. It's entirely possible Wolverine slips into a late 2025 release window or even 2026, and honestly, that's a very good thing. Why? Because this isn't just another open world game. From the early footage and everything Insomniac has hinted at in interviews before the breach, Wolverine is meant to be a more grounded, linear, and mature experience. Think shorter, tighter, more narrative driven, less about map icons and more about emotional impact and a brutal combat system. Rushing a project like that to meet an arbitrary date, especially after a major breach, would be an absolute disaster. We've seen what happens when ambitious games get rushed out the door. Cyberpunk 2077, Anthem, Redfall, Gotham Knights had potential on paper, but execution is everything. If Insomniac needs an extra year to truly realize the potential of Wolverine, I say they should take it, because the expectations here aren't small. Fans are hoping for the superhero equivalent of God of War 2018, not just another beat 'em up with a Marvel skin. Now, let's talk about team capacity. Some people have speculated that the Wolverine delay might be due to staffing issues after the breach. From what we've seen, there's no concrete evidence that major layoffs occurred at Insomniac as a result of the hack, but there is a very real chance that time and energy were diverted to infrastructure and recovery, especially in early 2024, and that could have slowed content delivery for sure. Not just for Wolverine, but also for Marvel's Spider-Man 2. That DLC might have been in the works, who knows? This is one of the most overlooked aspects of the entire situation. It's not just about Wolverine. The absence of any post-launch content for Spider-Man 2, no story expansions, no combat challenges, not even a New Game Plus mode until months after launch, is a huge red flag. Insomniac has historically used DLC to bridge the gap between big releases. Remember the City That Never Sleeps trilogy for Spider-Man 2018? That content helped maintain momentum and revenue during quiet periods. The fact that we've had nothing for Spider-Man 2 suggests that all hands are either on Wolverine or that resources were stretched thin by damage control. So yes, I do believe Wolverine is still coming, and no, I don't think it's cancelled or in development hell, but I do think it's been delayed, both officially and unofficially, and that Sony is now being extremely cautious about when and how to reintroduce it. They don't want to remind fans of the leak. They want the next time we see this game to be under their terms, in full control, with a polished, jaw-dropping trailer that restores excitement and trust. And in that sense, silence might be their best PR strategy right now. The real question now becomes, when will we hear from them again? What does the next PlayStation showcase need to look like for them to rebuild momentum? And how much is riding on Wolverine to carry Sony's next-gen narrative portfolio forward? That's exactly what we'll tackle next. So now that we've covered the history, the breach, and the state of Wolverine as it stands, let's zoom out a bit and look at the bigger picture, because this situation with Insomniac, it's not happening in a vacuum, it's unfolding during a very critical moment for PlayStation's entire first-party strategy. Over the past couple years, we've seen an unexpected shift in Sony's tone and momentums. Insomniac is the studio that's been holding the entire pipeline together. It's gone completely dark in the last couple years, obviously, and for reasons entirely out of their control. So that is leaving us with a major gap in Sony's release calendar. If Wolverine is slipping to late 2025 or 2026, and if Spider-Man 3 isn't due until 2028, like the leaked roadmap suggested, then what exactly is PlayStation's tentpole offering in the next 18 to 24 months? Where's the next big thing that defines the PS5 generation the way God of War 2018 or Bloodborne defined the PS4? This is why the pressure on Wolverine is so intense. It's not just a highly anticipated game, it's become a symbol of PlayStation's ability to maintain dominance in a very crowded space. Microsoft is buying up studios like Candy, and Xbox Game Pass is slowly chipping away at traditional AAA game publishing. Meanwhile, Nintendo continues to dominate with first-party consistency, now bolstered by the Switch 2. In the middle of all that, Sony needs a win pretty bad. According to what was exposed in the breach, Wolverine is only the beginning. As I mentioned earlier, they're also planning a standalone Venom game, likely expanding on his arc from Spider-Man 2, an X-Men team-up based game, which just sounds incredible, especially developed by Insomniac. That could just be a smash hit, you know? And of course, Spider-Man 3, which appears to be the studio's biggest Marvel game yet, reportedly featuring Peter, Miles, and potentially other playable heroes. Now here's the critical part. None of these games have been officially revealed, and in the wake of the breach, Sony has been incredibly tight-lipped, not just about Insomniac, but about their overall portfolio. They're clearly playing defense, trying to recalibrate the narrative before going public again. And honestly, I feel like that's pretty smart. Because when Wolverine finally gets shown off, whether that's at the next PlayStation Showcase, a standalone State of Play, or the Game Awards, it has to land. It can't just be a teaser. They have to show us gameplay. It has to show the tone. It has to prove that the vision survived the leak, the stress, and the silence. And let's be real, that moment specifically might be make or break for how the PlayStation audience feels about this generation. If Wolverine stumbles, it's going to raise serious questions about the sustainability of Sony's blockbuster first strategy. But if it succeeds, it could remind people why PlayStation exclusives have been the gold standard for narrative-driven games for over a decade. Insomniac is still Sony's golden goose, even after everything that's happened, but they can't carry the weight of an entire console ecosystem alone. If Sony wants to keep its edge, Wolverine can't be just another good game. It has to be a generational moment. I still believe in Insomniac, I really do. The team there has shown us time and time again that they understand what makes a game fun, what makes a character compelling, and what it means to deliver on hype. But I also believe we as a community need to temper our expectations just a little bit. They're not machines, they're human, and they've been through a lot. So what happens next? Well, we wait and we watch, and when the time comes, we hope they show us something that makes us believe all over again. We're in this strange space between hope and uncertainty. Wolverine is one of the most exciting projects in development right now, not just for PlayStation fans, but for anyone who loves storytelling, deep character work, and mature action gameplay. The potential is massive, but the road to release has been messier than we ever expected, and a lot of that mess has happened behind the scenes. The Rhysida hack wasn't just a leak, it was a traumatic moment for Insomniac, and it was a complete violation of their creative privacy, and it was a disruption of their timeline, and a massive blow to their momentum. It exposed the studio mid-swing, not at the top of their arc, not ready to wow the crowd, but somewhere in the build-up, and unfortunately the public got a front row seat to content that was never meant to be seen, really. Now we're dealing with the aftershocks. A Wolverine game that was likely on track for late 2024 is now surrounded by heavy speculation. A Spider-Man sequel that lacked DLC is quietly fading into memory, and a developer once seen as unstoppable is for the first time in years silent. But silence doesn't mean failure. Sometimes silence means regrouping. It means rebuilding, rethinking how we deliver something truly special. And honestly, I'd rather wait for a Wolverine game that hits hard, that stuns us with its quality and emotional depth, rather than rushing into something half-baked just to meet expectations or fix a PR narrative. And let's not forget, the same team that made Spider-Man Miles Morales, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, and Spider-Man 2 all in the span of 6 years is the team making Wolverine. If anyone deserves a little trust and breathing room, it's Insomniac in my opinion. So here's my take. Yes, it's frustrating that we haven't seen more. Yes, the silence around the game and around Sony's first-party strategy in general is unnerving, but don't mistake quiet for weakness. I genuinely believe Insomniac is working on something bold, something dark, something different. A game that stands alongside Spider-Man, not in its shadow. Whether Wolverine drops in late 2025, early 2026, or beyond, I'm still going to be there day one. Not because of the leak, not because of the hype, but because I trust this studio to deliver a story worth experiencing. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Are you still excited for Wolverine? Do you think Sony's strategy is working? Or are they too quiet for their own good right now? Have you seen the leaked footage? And if so, did it change your expectations? I want to hear all your thoughts because this is a conversation worth having as fans, not just as consumers. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and share this with someone who's still holding out hope for Insomniac's next big thing. We've got more content coming soon, so keep it locked right here. Anyways, thanks for watching, and stay patient, stay curious, and as always, stay passionate about games. So yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.